biologist. So thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So can you tell me a little bit about what's your position in the DNR? Being a wildlife biologist, what does that really consist of?
Yeah, so the area that I cover is the very northeastern portion of the Lower Peninsula. So I cover Alpena County, Montmorency County, and Presque County. And the things that I do really depend on the time of year, but I do a lot of work on public land, and I do a lot of work directly with wildlife in the state.
So what would you say, especially now that spring is here, the nicer weather's here, what would you say that the biggest phone calls that you get involving wildlife?
Yeah, so one of the things that we get called about a lot this time of year is actually people either near their homes or when they're out camping that they're noticing younger animals, baby animals out this time of year. And so they like to call us and ask us a couple of questions about, what's going on with those animals.
So what's the biggest concern? Are these calls about questions? Are they just concerns, curiosities? What is the typical conversation?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is people, when they see a young animal, the first thing they want to do is they want to help,
Yeah.
and that's kind of the first thing. And one of the best things is when they call us or talk to us and we're able to reach out to them, the best way to help that animal is actually to just let that animal be. You can definitely look at it from afar and kind of enjoy that experience, and then let it stay and move on. So a good example of an animal that people run across, especially in May and actually this month as well, are fawns that they might see. And so one of the unique things about fawns is actually how their mothers sort of take care of them early on. So they're not able to run and keep up with mom really quick right away. So they actually will leave the doe will leave the fawn kind of hidden in a little pocket. They might actually not look that hidden to you, but they kind of tuck them away. And they don't have any scent, and their actual their strategy is to stay very still and not to move. So I think some people, when they come across them, they get concerned because they see this animal and it's not moving, and oh no, does it need my help? And it's actually, that's exactly what it should be doing. So it's like a perfect situation. So like I said, you can just kind of, like I said, you see the animal, kind of enjoy the experience really quick, and then you can step back. And if you're concerned about it or anything, call us first. Call the DNR, call the customer service center, and we can kind of explain that situation as well. But another thing too, I think they get really concerned when they don't see the mom right close nearby. And that's a part of the strategy. So the doe actually has scent, and she's larger, more visible, so she will actually spend more time away from that fawn than with it. So she'll actually feed away from it, she'll come back really quick to nurse, and then she'll leave immediately. So,
so I think teaching it that independence?
Not so much independence, but she just doesn't want to attract anything to it. She doesn't want anybody to know, oh, there's a fawn, you see a doe, so immediately you're like, oh, is there, that's exactly how they protect them, is by staying away. So when people don't see that doe, they think it's abandoned, when really it's not abandoned. And in those does, they know how to parent best. So you kind of have to expect that they know what they're doing and that they're taking care of that baby. You just might not see it.
So what is the type of situation, you hear rumors or you hear the idea of if you touch a wildlife, the mother will reject it afterward, and it might actually, leave it for dead, or whatever. So I mean, is that true? How does that, what is your experience in that?
That's an interesting thing, and I've heard that before. A lot of times I hear that associated with birds, more commonly, where, oh, if you touch a baby bird, it will be abandoned. Yeah, they actually don't have great scent. Birds don't. So I think that is one of those things you kind of will tell people, or kids especially, oh, don't touch it. But you still don't. It is good advice not to touch those animals. But for example, birds, there's kind of different life stages. There's kind of when they're still in the nest, and that's, if you stumble across something like that, again, it's fine. You just sort of let it be. Occasionally people will come across really, really small young birds that might be downed near a nest, something like that, or the fledgling stages where they're at right now, where they're sort of big enough where they're starting to hop out of the nest, but they're actually not that great at flying yet. So people might see these animals and they kind of look like they're hopping around and they don't really know what they're doing. And that's fine. Like, that's a totally normal part of their life process, where they're just sort of figuring out those first few steps and getting their first few flights down. And another good thing too is, even though they're not able to get back into the nest, the parents are still taking care of them. So you might not see the parents, but they're flying up around overhead, and they're even bringing food to that animal and sort of teaching it. But that's another thing. I think people might see one of these birds hopping around,
Right.
want to help, and then they might take that animal, and really what you're doing is you're hurting it by taking it out of its natural environment and taking it away from its parents.
Right, because you replace it somewhere else. Maybe you can't make that connection.
Right. I mean, there's
can't
really
find
nothing.
each other. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing. We can't do a good job of parenting for them.
Mhm.
They're already getting all their needs met in the environment that they're in right now.
So I know William Webster mentioned in the beginning that a big thing for the DNR is providing that education so that people can learn. Do you think if this message gets out there, people will just be more educated and wildlife will have a better spring, a better summer?
Yeah,
Better
absolutely.
life.
I think it's one of those things where, really by even spreading this message too. So maybe one of your friends posted a picture of a fawn and aren't sure what to do with it, and now listening to this segment and hearing this,
Yeah.
you can kind of spread that word and basically get that message out there.
Awesome. So do you have any resources or any specific, I know we've given a couple websites out, but
Yeah.
anything specific that you wanted to touch on to help raise awareness and get this message out there?
Yeah, absolutely. Just how Katie was talking about that YouTube video that we
Mhm.
have for bears, we have a very similar one for fawns. So if you can
Okay.
go to the DNR YouTube page, and you can actually see that fawn video. And really, our general website has tons of information. You can search any keywords, and you can always call our customer service center, and we'll be happy to answer your questions.
Awesome. And I think my last question would just be, what is the biggest thing that you want people to walk away from with this? There's a lot of different ways to handle situations, but if they come across something tomorrow, what would you say
Yeah.
their action should be?
Absolutely. I think the best thing is to keep wildlife in the wild. That's really what we want. And before you take any action, you might be concerned, but always call first and always talk to somebody first before you interfere in any way. Because a lot of times people who are trying to help, it actually does more harm.
Yeah, it's unfortunate too because we
Yeah.
keep saying that they want to help, they
Yes,
want to help,
absolutely.
but
Yeah.
they'll be helping by leaving
Yep.
wildlife in the wild.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Shelby. I appreciate it. And be sure to tune in next week for another edition of Insights.
Insights into Northeast Michigan is produced by WBKB News. If you have any comments, suggestions, or topics you would like to see on a future show, please email WBKB News. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.